The rain hammered the windshield of a silver sedan parked crookedly outside a 24-hour diner, and inside that car, curled beneath a thin blazer that used to cost more than most people's rent, sat a woman who 3 months ago commanded a boardroom of 40 executives and now had nowhere to sleep but the driver's seat of her own car. Her name was Elena Marsh, and at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in November, she was jolted awake by a knuckle tapping softly against her fogged-up window. If this story moves something in you, if you believe in second chances, in strangers who choose kindness when they don't have to, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope tonight, and subscribe to Humanity Tales so you never miss a story like this one. The man outside her window was named Daniel Reyes, 38 years old, a single father who worked the night shift stocking shelves at a supermarket 2 blocks away, and who had only stepped outside for a cigarette he didn't really want, just an excuse to breathe cold air and think about his daughter's school fees. He almost didn't knock. He told himself later that it would have been easier to walk past, to mind his business the way the world had taught him to. But something about the way Elena's hand was pressed flat against the glass, even in sleep, like she was bracing for the world to take one more thing from her, made him stop. Elena rolled the window down 2 inches, just enough to speak, her voice cracking with the particular exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept in a bed in 11 days. She told him she was fine, that she was just resting before a drive, the kind of lie people tell when they still have enough pride left to be ashamed. Daniel didn't push. He simply said there was a diner open right there, that the coffee was bad but hot, and that nobody should sit alone in a cold car at 2 in the morning if there was a warm booth 20 feet away. Something about the plainness of the offer, the absence of pity in it, cracked something loose in Elena that 3 months of humiliation hadn't managed to break. She had been the CEO of a mid-sized logistics company her father built from a single delivery truck, a company she had grown into a name recognized across 4 states. Her husband Marcus had been the company's CFO, charming in board meetings and cold at home, and when he left her for a woman 12 years younger, he hadn't just taken half of everything in the settlement. He had spent the last 2 years quietly maneuvering the board against her, whispering that she was too emotional, too distracted, not built for this anymore. By the time the divorce was finalized, so was her ouster from the company that bore her father's legacy. She lost her house in the settlement disputes that followed, her savings drained by lawyers, her friends. She realized bitterly, had mostly been Marcus's friends all along. She had been staying in motels until even those became unaffordable, and 3 nights ago, out of options and too proud to call the one sister she hadn't spoken to in 5 years, she had started sleeping in her car. Inside the diner, under fluorescent lights that made everyone look a little bit tired and a little bit real, Elena ordered a coffee because it was the cheapest thing on the menu, and Daniel ordered a coffee too, though he didn't need one, because he understood that a person eating alone with a stranger watching feels like charity, and a person eating with company feels like being seen. He told her about his daughter, Mia, who was 7 and drew pictures of houses with 2 chimneys, because she said one chimney was for warmth and one was for hope, a detail that made Elena's throat tighten in a way she didn't expect. He told her about his wife, who had died of an aggressive cancer when Mia was 4, and how the 2 of them had built a small, imperfect life out of double shifts and packed lunches, and a lot of prayer he wasn't sure he still believed in. Elena found herself telling him things she hadn't said out loud to anyone, not to her lawyer, not to the therapist she'd stopped affording, not even fully to herself. She told him about signing away her father's company with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. She told him about the night she realized her husband had been planning her exit for a year before he ever mentioned divorce. She told him, quietly, that she had started to wonder if the version of herself people once respected had ever really existed, or if it had just been a costume she wore until someone decided to take it off her. Daniel didn't offer solutions. He didn't tell her everything happened for a reason, or that she'd bounce back because she was strong, the kind of empty comfort people give when they want a hard conversation to end quickly. Instead, he told her that he had spent the year after his wife's death convinced that he had failed as a provider, a husband, a man, and that it took him a long time to understand that surviving a collapse isn't the same as being weak. Sometimes it's the only proof you have that you were strong enough to still be standing. Something about hearing that from a man who stocked shelves at midnight and still made time to braid his daughter's hair before school, a man with far less than she'd ever had and somehow far more peace than she currently possessed, settled something in Elena's chest that had been in free fall for months. He didn't offer her his couch that first night. He barely knew her, and he was raising a little girl alone, and caution was a habit that kept both of them safe. But he did something that mattered more in that moment. He gave her the name of a women's shelter 2 miles away that a coworker had once mentioned, one that didn't ask too many questions and had beds available, and he waited with her in the diner until it was light enough outside that the drive there felt less frightening. Before she left, he wrote his number on a napkin, not out of any expectation, just so she'd have one person in this city who knew her name and wouldn't forget it by morning. The following weeks were not a fairy tale. Elena stayed at the shelter, filled out applications at companies that didn't recognize the woman who once addressed shareholders, took a temporary job doing bookkeeping for a hardware store for wages that made her wince and grateful in the same breath. Daniel checked in the way you check on a plant you're not sure will survive the winter, not overwatering, not smothering, just present. He'd text to ask if she'd eaten. He invited her to a Sunday lunch with him and Mia, a modest spread of spaghetti and garlic bread in a small apartment that smelled like laundry detergent and crayons. And Elena sat on a second-hand couch and felt, for the first time in a year, like she was somewhere she was allowed to simply exist without performing composure. Mia, with the directness only a 7-year-old possesses, asked Elena why she looked sad even when she smiled. And Elena, disarmed, told her the truth, that she had lost something important and was trying to figure out how to build something new. Mia considered this with the seriousness of a small philosopher, and then told her that when her drawings went wrong, she didn't throw them away. She just added more lines until the mistake became part of the picture. Elena would later say, to anyone who asked how her life changed direction, that a child's crayon-stained wisdom did more for her that afternoon than any executive coach ever had. Slowly, the shape of Elena's life began to shift. She started using the skills that had built her father's company, not for boardrooms now, but to help small businesses in the neighborhood untangle their books and streamline their operations, one modest client at a time. Word spread. The hardware store owner recommended her to a friend who owned a bakery, who recommended her to a friend who ran a small trucking outfit not unlike the one her father once built from nothing. 6 months after that rainy night in the diner, Elena had 3 steady clients and enough saved to rent a small apartment of her own, the first place in over a year that was entirely, unapologetically hers. She never forgot the tap on the window. She kept the napkin with Daniel's number folded in her wallet long after she'd saved his contact properly, a small paper reminder that the worst night of her life had also been the night a stranger decided she was worth stopping for. Their friendship deepened into something neither of them had been looking for, and both of them had quietly needed, a partnership built not on titles or bank accounts, but on 2 people who had each been flattened by loss and chosen, separately and then together, to stand back up. Elena started picking Mia up from school on the days Daniel's shifts ran long, and Mia began drawing houses with 3 chimneys instead of 2. A year after that 2 a.m. knock on a fogged-up window, Elena stood at the opening of a small consulting office she'd finally been able to lease, her name on the door in simple black letters, and looking through the glass she saw Daniel standing on the sidewalk with Mia on his shoulders, both of them grinning like they'd been the ones who accomplished something. She realized, watching them, that everything she had once mistaken for her identity, the title, the office, the applause of a boardroom, had never been the foundation at all. The foundation was this: a person willing to notice you when you thought you were invisible, and the courage to let yourself be seen. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late for a second chance. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Humanity Tales so we can keep bringing you stories like Elena and Daniel's. Before you go, we have one small request. Type the word hope in the comments below if you believe that even in our darkest nights, there is always someone out there willing to knock on the window and remind us we are not alone. Elena Marsh never became a CEO again in the way she once was. She became something she considered far greater. A woman who understood that the truest measure of success isn't the title on your door, but the people who choose to stand beside you when you have absolutely nothing left to offer them but your honest, broken self. And that, in the end, was more than enough.